Hi, everybody. This is our second podcast, and I have a co-host tonight. I have Erica Courtney. She's from my church. She has three daughters. Let me see, 16-year-old, 13-year-old, and then a son, 10-year-old. She's a school teacher, special ed, and she's been married 14 years. We have our new lapel mics with the little furry things, so that we're testing these out. But we got some, response. Thank you for responding and making me feel cool. But about mommy topics, and what I've learned delving into this is that seriously, this is a bottomless pit of topics. So we picked some. We have not discussed anything that we're going to actually talk opinion wise. So we may disagree, and but we're going to have to do mommy talks like a lot because there's lots of topics and there's too much to cover in one time. Of course, it would be too long. It'd be 5 days. Okay, so. I thought we'd start off with this. It's a very large category, but when you're pregnant, I'm going to start with this one, then we're going to go into some of the topics. Okay. When you're pregnant.
Yes.
Did you get an epidural and do all that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I agree with you.
Yes.
Now, I'm not, this is not against natural childbirth, though. I mean, if there are some mothers, let me tell you what, Cindy Brown, she can pop out a baby. She didn't even know she was in labor, and she went to the bathroom and felt the baby's head.
Oh my gosh.
She popped out that baby. And God bless her. But me, I'm standing on my bed in the hospital screaming, peeing into my pillow because I don't want to go to the bathroom. Like, I can't handle the pain. Get the epidural. You're not going to get a tax break if you go natural. You're not going to you're not going to get a hero cookie. You're going to get nothing. So it's just your call. If you want an epidural, get one. Okay, there's my little stibble on that. Yes. Before we start on some of the topics you mentioned, because Erica gave me some areas, and I thought they were really good, and we're going to get into that. But I wanted to know what we would tell ourselves as a young mother, what you know now, and when we were in that hustle phase when they were tiny kids. I know you're still in hustle phase.
Yes, I'm still hustling. What I know now, I would say, don't sweat the small stuff. I remember Zoe Grace is my oldest, and I remember I used to have to think that she had to look like Southern Belle boutique perfect to go to Publix. Like, she would have to have the bow and the romper and the smocked everything to go to Publix. And then by the time the third kid came along, I'm like, oh my gosh, let's just get to Publix. Like, I was just happy to get to Publix.
Just try to make it there.
Just make it to the store. And then I feel like now, sometimes, you'll see a kid crying at the store, or they're crying in a restaurant or crying at the store. It's okay. It is okay. Every
We've
kid
all
cries.
Been there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Every kid cries. Every kid misbehaves. Every kid has had to go to the Red Lobster bathroom and get a high knee spanking. Mm-hmm. That is okay. And it is okay to spank your child. It is okay.
That's
just don't leave a mark. Don't leave a mark.
Right.
You're allowed to spank your kid.
I think that spanking is okay also. And that's interesting that you mentioned it because that's something I wrote down. But I think, now I don't know how you are with, you're right, we don't want to leave marks. So what's the difference? I would say spanking is deliberate, never done in anger. Right. And very deliberate. My mother had a one swat kind of deal most of the time. Mm-hmm. So it's like a one swat, deliberate, one swat, deliberate.
Yes.
And that works good. But I also think I had a son, hated getting spanked. That would work for him. I might have spanked him 4 or 5 times in his whole life, mm-hmm. but that would straighten him up. Right. My daughter, Katie, she didn't care. She would beg you to spank her because she did not want to be sent to her room. See, DJ would rather go to his room. Yeah. Let's leave me alone, and not get spanked. But Katie, she begging for a beating because she doesn't want to go to her room. So of course we sent her to her room because that's what she hated. Right. So I just think what matters on what responds for your kid.
Like John Benjamin, he's my son. He doesn't need to be disciplined. He's just a good little boy. I had to fill out some forms at school, and the question was, how do you discipline your child? And I went, well, he's really compliant. I don't have to discipline him because he just minds. He's just a chill little kid. Now, my girls will get sassy. Sometimes we have to take away a phone. Sometimes, oh my gosh, I'm taking away a phone now. That gets them all riled up. Yeah. But for the most part, I feel like if you discipline when they're younger, then they do behave. Now, I will say sometimes kids, and just being a teacher, I see this. Kids behave sometimes better at school than they do at home for their parents because they've had to hold it in all day. And then by the time they get home, oh, I can let my guard down. I'm going to act out for my parents. But it's because as parents and as mothers especially, we are their comfort spot. We are the spot where they can relax and they can just kind of be free. And it's okay, because even as adults, we have moments. We cry, we get frustrated. So just let your kid have their moment. If you can get them to behave in school and not to be sassy at school for their teachers, let them have their moment at home. Heaven only knows my girls can be so sassy. But if I tell the teachers that, they're like, are you kidding me?
Of course. But I think, okay, now, I don't know how you feel about discipline, but I didn't do this all the time. I'm just telling you what worked. Remember how we talked about that the first podcast, is that we're just giving you ideas of things that have worked. But because it worked doesn't mean that I did it all the time, because I made mistakes all along the way. But when I was most successful is when I was consistent.
Yes.
Okay. And it also worked for my dance teams. If any of y'all were on my dance teams, you know, if like Michelle Woods, she taught the dance, was my assistant teacher, blah, blah, everything. And I had a rule. If you were 1 minute late, I didn't stage you. Like, you're not going on. And so she showed up to the Jacksonville Giants game late because she was picking up people, and I might have been a trainer or something, and I couldn't let her perform. But I was going to stay consistent. So I feel like the most successful I've ever been is when I've just been non-emotional and consistent on the discipline side. What do you think?
I agree 100%. I feel like you can't say, oh, today we're going to do this and tomorrow we're going to do this. No, you have to stay firm. Like, these are our expectations, and these are going to be our expectations. And yes, they're going to change over time, and situations are going to change, and your kids are going to mature and change, but you really do need to stay consistent. And I agree. Like, I know, like, our swim team coach is the same way. Like, she expects the kids to be in the pool at a certain time. Like, be there, show up. We are diving in at this time. And if you're late, you miss opportunities. Right. You miss jobs. People
and I'm
get fired.
I'm never going to have somebody else wait, as a coach anyways,
right,
for the late person.
Right.
Okay. Now, I will say there was one time I had a bunch of dance team girls in my car, and they were just happened to be with me after school. We're going back to the game, and I got stuck at the what do you call it, the railroad crossing. Those girls, and then the train stopped. Those girls wanted to jump out of my car and jump over in between the tracks, because they had to get there before I got there, because if they were late, I wasn't going to be able to stage them, even though I was late. So that would probably be me. And it worked the best with my kids too, when I was non-emotional, which I didn't do all the time. And here's an example of that. We asked Katie not to be kissing around 13 and 14 years old. We wanted her to wait till she was a little bit older. Her dad and I talked to her about it. Well, we come to find out she's a freshman in high school, and she's like barely 14, and we found out, she's kissing on her boyfriend. Me, I go emotional. I'm like, Kate, I can't believe this. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? Why did you break the rules? Now I don't know if I can trust you. Blah, 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 blah. And she's just sitting there looking at me, stoic, just didn't care, whatever. And then her daddy, after I've been upset for 45 minutes and I'm just trying to drill this in her head, Matt walks over to her and gives her a little kiss on the cheek. And then she was sitting on the, those box freezers. It's one of those freezers that you throw everything in. Yeah. And he gave her a kiss on the cheek, and he goes, you're still my girl though, right? And she starts bawling. Oh. Okay. So what I learned from that is we didn't change the consequences. The consequences are the same. It's just his approach meant sunken more to her than my emotional over-the-top response. So I think, for instance, our kids should experience consequences of life. That's how the universe works. For instance, if I eat 100 Twinkies, no matter how much compassion anybody has for me for eating 100 Twinkies and spiking my sugar, I'm still going to gain weight. But you can still have compassion for me. You're like, I'm really sorry you got sick. I'm really sorry that your blood sugar is spiked. I'm really sorry that you can't move now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so what I learned when I was my best self with my kids is when I walked through their consequences with them, but didn't solve it. And I also learned that it built confidence.
Yes.
Because whenever I reminded my kids that they could handle a situation, that doesn't mean I didn't defend them. You want to be their cheerleader, all of that stuff. But if there's a consequence, be there with them through the consequence, but they own that. And then you start building confidence in them that they have the wisdom to know the difference. That way they're not, does that make sense? They
Absolutely.
can solve their problems.
Absolutely.
But anyways, okay. So one of these things that Erica brought up was when to get cell phones. Give me some info on that.
Okay, I feel like I've lived and learned, and this is something Zoe Grace brings up to me all the time. She's like, well, you messed up with me. Okay, I admit it. I did it. So our rule was not till like 8th grade. So she went to 7th grade junior high, which was COVID, and she had no phone. And she sat that whole year at like the lunch table by herself while everybody's playing on their phones. And finally, it was Christmas of 8th grade year. I know, because I just didn't want her to have a phone. She had no reason for a phone. She rode the bus. She came home. She had no reason for a phone. Finally, it was Christmas of her 8th grade year, and we got her a phone. And she was so excited. Looking back, I think we waited too long. But I was like, well, she just doesn't need one, because she was always with me outside of school. And then with Iris, Zoe Grace came to us and said, Mom, you waited too long. And so then we became when you go to junior high, you will get a phone because you need them for the bus app. And then you're away from me. I need to know that you're safe, and so on and so forth. So then we got her one. It was Christmas of 6th grade because she'd be going into 7th grade. And
what's the advantage of having a phone, getting a hold of them?
Yes, getting a hold of them. The downside, I just think, is they're talking to more friends now. Then they've got the social media apps and so on and so forth. I mean,
when I went home from school, school stayed at school.
Not anymore.
But now school follows you home and through all the night.
Oh, yeah. And you really have to watch it, because kids get in trouble now if they're Snapchatting, if they're doing things. And they even know that, like, if you're sending like hateful or threatening messages to other kids, you can get in trouble, and it can come back to you, and you can have the consequences come through the school system. So you really have to watch it. But in some regards, like now the policy at the junior high in this county is no phones during the day. But last year they could, so they could have them out at lunch and to talk and so forth. Okay. But the policy changed over the summer. So we got her this phone thinking, oh, she'll be able to have it out at lunch. Nope. Now, the minute they get to the school, it has to go in their book bag and everything. Really? It's a Florida policy that changed.
Really?
But the high schoolers can have their phones only at lunch, but they really are like wanting them put away. But I know some elementary kids in St. John's
County, they have to put their cell phones by the door, like there's like a shoe rack thing or something, and then you pick it up when you leave.
Yep.
So I guess in the hallways and at lunch.
It's safer because some kids go in the bathrooms and they'll like take pictures of kids in bathroom stalls, like they pop them up under. Kids are disgusting.
Wow.
Yeah, and pictures last forever.
I never thought of that. Yeah, pictures. The internet and the pictures are last forever. So the bad side is, to me, what I was thinking about cell phones is I do like getting hold of my kids. Mm-hmm. I did. And back in the day when like Donna was young, she had, I got her beeper or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Back in those days.
Yes, a beeper.
Because I'm 59 with 12 grandkids, so it's like old. Mm-hmm. But I would think that I would also be concerned with what's available to them on the cell phone. And I think this day and age, it's not like if your kid will see pornography, and you can put parental controls on, which I suggest you do.
Absolutely.
But it's when they see pornography. Mm-hmm. It feels pretty much kids are going to see it, whether it's from a friend or somewhere else. It's going to come up. So you got to really talk to your kids on how to handle that when it comes into their realm of sight, because it does happen. And we don't want them to get the warped side of things that we want as parents to be teaching our kids. I don't know how you all, and this will be a whole nother podcast about talking to your kids about sex, but my mother was very open to us about sex, and it served me right, because then I didn't have to believe all the mystery stuff that I heard at school. I would just go ask my mom, and that was okay. But anyways, okay. So cell phones, you say yes, but you think waiting to middle school.
Wait till they go to middle school.
I can. Mm-hmm. I think I agree with that. That's pretty good. I think elementary kids that's probably too young.
Too young. And now, like starting next year, like John Benjamin will go to the middle school a year early. So he will go in 6th grade. So he will get his phone before he goes into 6th grade. And they just kind of know that. That is now our policy. But see, as we parented and as we've learned, I always like you make your mistakes with your firstborn. Yeah. And then you had that poor firstborn, man. Yeah. There you're like, oops, sorry. But I feel like they're resilient, and they're kind of like I make the rules, the firstborn, and then the middle one is, how does that saying go? I make the rules, and then
the middle one, breaks the rules.
Breaks the rules,
and the last one, there is no rules.
Yeah, exactly. And that is so perfect. You're right.
Okay, so I think I can agree with her on this one. I think middle school is a good time to get the phones, but it's not a time to become backseat parent either. I would know all their passcodes and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Not because you need to be spying on your kids, but because that's just called responsibility. We have a responsibility of who's contacting our kids, who's messaging them, not just other kids, but like any kind of adult or anything. We want to know what's going on. So you have to be very vigilant.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go to social media.
Yes.
So what is it about social media? How do you think we should approach that as parents?
I think you just have to watch it and you have to know what apps your kids are on. Like
what's the most popular one?
I guess TikTok. My girls love TikTok. I can't stand TikTok. It drives me crazy. So this whole TikTok ban they were freaking out about, I'm like, ugh, I can't stand it. So my girls are on TikTok.
My kids too.
They love it. Mm-hmm. My girls are on Instagram. I let them join. Okay, Zoe's been on Instagram because she needs it kind of for some school accounts.
Do they have an Instagram too? Like a fake Instagram or just one Instagram?
They just have one Instagram. But then I told Iris like last week, go get on Instagram in case TikTok goes down. That way you can be following your TikTok people. She's on that. Zoe's on Facebook. And she was on Snapchat and she got rid of it. She did not like Snapchat. She said it was just icky. She was icky. And then people are snapping and you got to keep up with this streak and all this.
Right. I did hear about the streak.
Yeah, the streak thing.
I don't know these things very much. I would say that a lot of kids have a Finstagram, I think it's called, and it's a fake Instagram. So you have your regular Instagram, and then they have a Finstagram, which it's like, I don't know her daughter as well. I mean, I know she has really involved daughters, or children, but I don't know of a teenager that I taught that didn't have a fake Instagram.
Oh wow! Okay.
So they have it where they have like where their parents will see. That's what it is. So I think you just need to be aware of that, and remember, it's not always something bad going on. It's just always being aware. It's okay to be a step ahead of them.
Yeah.
And what's going on. But what do you do about social media if people are contacting them or hurting them or not hurting them, but like bullying? What do we do about that?
Well, I just think that we watch it. Like my husband watches Iris's account, like their account is somehow linked. It's a wonky donkey thing. But so we watch every single text that comes through and oh my goodness, there's girls and boys, but we can see every single text. And there's been times when there was a couple group texts last year when she was in 6th grade that were getting inappropriate with boys saying bad words. And I jumped in. I said, excuse me. There are too many good girls in this group for you to be cursing and saying bad words. And it got shut down immediately. But there was a few other teachers whose daughters were in there and they all shut it down and our girls got out immediately because they're like, we just don't want to be a part of this. Like we know it's just not the right place to be.
Right.
But if people start bullying, I just think you kind of step in and like, no, we're done. You're getting out.
I would want my kids I totally agree with stepping in on a bullying situation. I just want my kids to know the difference themselves and how do we create that dialogue where they can talk to us. And how you do that is really non-emotional. Like when I was 13, my mom asked me if anything had happened to me when I was younger, and I had been molested when I was 5 and 8. And so, 5, I wasn't molested. I was 5 years old and I was asked by an 18-year-old uncle to put my lips on his private area. And I was just saying, why are you going to pee in my mouth? Why are you going to pee in my mouth? But when I was 8, I was fully molested. And so I didn't say a word. I was ashamed. And mainly because I couldn't tell if I liked it. It was when I was 8 years old. And I felt really bad about that. I felt like I was a bad girl. But when I was 13, my mom just opened up this dialogue about sex and everything. And I felt really comfortable. And I told her everything that happened. And she was just very non-emotional. And these were relatives of hers, well, mine too, but more far removed because it wasn't my dad or my brothers. It was somebody coming from her side of the family. And so I just want, I could talk to her about those things. And because she was not emotional about that. My mother got emotional about other things, but it wasn't like, like that. She was just like, wow, how was that for you? How did you get through that? What could I have done to make it where you could talk to me earlier? I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk to this person again, but I'll see. How would you like me to handle it? So I thought that was fair. Very fair. Okay. All right. So the next thing is, social media can be a dangerous game. And I don't think we have to babysit it all the time. I do like how Ralph has this little thing that goes off on his phone that always tells him when his kid's on certain apps. But it's like having your family computer out in the open. Sometimes kids knowing that you just have access is enough.
Yep.
You don't have to look at every single little thing. I mean, I do think you should have purge sessions where you get the phones out and you do that. But I think that just knowing that you have access to their social media keeps them in line, just kind of like having the family computer out in an open area, not in a private little dark room where they can do whatever they want. So I think the knowing that you are paying attention also helps. And also give them some autonomy, because kids will swing their pendulum, even if they don't agree to the opposite of what your belief is, just to have autonomy. They want to think that they're believing and thinking on their own. So I just don't want to give them anything that needs them to have to swing that hard. That doesn't mean I don't have standards. You have standards. You have expectations. I'm just saying they need some autonomy with their friends and all that kind of things, because kids need that. They need to know that they can navigate this world. Okay. Social media. So yes, it's a good thing. I think it's great. They keep in contact with each other. They know what's going on with the school. Then we also have to make sure that they're not being bullied and those kind of things. Okay. Extracurricular activities and sports. How does that play in for kids, do you think?
I think it's important. Our family, we have a policy that they have to do. They have to be in a club or an organization. They have to play an extracurricular or a sport, and then they have to do they have to do an instrument or be involved musically.
So what do they do? I know they swim.
Right.
Our kids are big swimmers.
All three of my kids swim, and then Iris, my daughter, and my son both do basketball, and then Zoe is now doing tennis. So they're both dual sport athletes.
Right.
Which
what kind of clubs do they do?
All my kids are in 4-H. Both the girls are in FFA. All the kids are very involved in church, and then Zoe's super involved in like high school activities. She's in honor society, beta club. She's in.
How do you squeeze all that in?
We're very busy. The one thing I will say about now that Zoe's driving, she's able to do a lot after school, which is super helpful. Her driving, just when you get a driver, as you know.
I know, the store again.
Yes. No, it's just nice. Like she's able to drive them to swim teams while I tutor at night. And then Iris does a lot at the junior high, because the junior has a late start time. She does a lot of her stuff before school. So she does FFA before school.
Okay.
She's an FBLA too. So she does that before school. And both of the girls are in Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So they do that as well. So we're just super, super busy.
Now listen, Erica is the person at our church that if you want something done, you get Erica involved, because she's going to manhandle that and she's going to get it done. She can manage kids and everything. I want you to know that I'm a high-strung person. I think she likes to be busy too. I also think that there's some people that it could be overwhelming to have that schedule. So I like what she said earlier, in that you need to pick a club, you need to pick a sport, and you need to pick a musical instrument. And if that's all, that's fine. But her kids are probably like her and want to do more and more. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But that's also fine. I think a busy and tired teenager is a good teenager. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because if they have too much time on their hands, that's when things creep in.
And can I say this? I had an assistant principal at my school. She now teaches at another school, gave me the best advice ever. Her name is Laura Libretto. She's amazing. She said this to me one day when Zoe Grace was a freshman. She said that every single kid needs to have something that they do in high school, and even middle school, because there's nothing worse than having a kid go to school and have nothing, to just go and just do class every day and leave. You don't feel a part of anything. Right. What is your purpose? Like,
what getting involved in your school makes you want to be in school.
You meet new friends, you meet new people. And I really, really think if your kid is going into school, get them involved in a fall sport or a fall club, because that's an automatic friend group.
Right.
Like here, swim is a fall sport. And oh my gosh, that gave Zoe Grace an immediate friend group.
Right.
Like she knew people right away, and it just helps. I just see like kids, they're brighter and they just always have friends. So I just really, really believe that. And it looks different for every kid and every family. And I'm not saying any family has to be as busy as ours, but any stretch of the imagination, it stresses some people out. I get that, but it's really important. And I know some families just do one sport. Like I have some friends whose kids do travel soccer or travel baseball. But you have to be in it, because it's not like back in the days of Little League back in the 80s where, we're going to do Little League and then we're going to do like Little League basketball and then we're going to do this. No.
It's pretty serious, these travel teams.
Oh my gosh. And the expense. Oh my word. Like I heard somebody talking about a bat the other day. The bats are like $500-$600. And then they go out of town.
I can't talk because I was a dance coach, and you got money coming out of there too.
Right. But I'm just saying, whatever you do, get your kid involved and stay busy, because the families that do it, they're good, supportive families, and they've got an eye out for your kid. That's a built-in support system. Like there are people to cheer for your kid and to love on your kid, and they come and cheer for your kids.
Right.
It's just good. Get involved. And I know not everybody can afford it. I get that. But there are non-travel teams. There's rec league teams that you can do.
You can get involved. I feel like in this day and age, there is a way to get involved.
Absolutely.
And also, a lot of the parents have, like she was talking about, have this camaraderie with each other and they become friends. I mean, my daughter Donna, and like they meet and sit with the same parents and talk. And they know everything about all that. Yes,
absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to. And there's so much to cover, so we're not going to be able to cover it. We're just going to have to do this more often. But I made a note of. There's a scripture that says that we need to reprove with sharpness, then show an increased amount of love. Whenever we're disciplining our kids, and I believed in this, and I believe in this in coaching also. That I was very firm on my expectations and rules, but then you can also show increased amount of love. And this is another thing I want to tell you about when I was managing my teams. And this is mainly teenager stuff, of course. We're going to talk about younger kids too, but if somebody's late and they're not going to get staged because they were late and they can't perform, everyone can have compassion for them. All the girls on the team can go, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Miss Pam's not going to let you do that." So that person gets compassion instead of, "Oh, I can't stand her. Miss Pam favors her. She breaks all the rules and gets away with it." So you actually create a better atmosphere. But when I prove with sharpness, and that to me is like saying you're not going to dance because you're late. But then showing a increased amount of love is we can have compassion for that person. I'm really sorry you're not going to perform. It's killing me. You're my top dancer. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this without you dancing? But I'm going to stick to the rule. Okay, so I just think having those distinct consistencies and sharpness of what's expected will improve the morale of your family and your kids and your teams. My mother one time said to me, "Don't be so busy giving your kids what you didn't have that you forget to give them what you did have." And I thought, if you think about your life, let's just not forget. Like I was so worried that I wanted her to go to prom because I didn't go to prom. And Katie really didn't care about prom. And here I am going through all this thing and getting all stressed out. And she was really kind of she went to church dances, but she went to prom, but they went and took their picture and left. They didn't really want to be there. So I was just like, why did I go through all of that? So just remember what you did learn. Write those things down. Make sure you're repeating the habits of things that your parents did do that you felt like were good for your life. And of course, there's always something we want to change that our parents did to us. We don't want to do to our kids. But I just don't want us to forget what we did have. How they talked to us. I think like my mother talked to sex about us. To us, it was an open door policy, and I was not embarrassed about it for some reason. She was just very matter of fact. So I wanted to keep that tradition. So I did that with my kids. I wanted to keep that tradition because I felt like it made me get the truth versus some psycho story at school or somebody's weird version. Because of pornography and everything else, they're just weird versions. Okay. And also, when you're walking your kids through consequences, I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but you can be there for them to get them through whatever they have to endure, whether it's school suspension, whatever, but you're just like, it doesn't feel so great. But then there's also good consequences. The universe is made and God has made it where there's bad consequences and there's good consequences. So when they do something good, when they get an A, B, whatever, if they're on the honor roll, let them own that. You don't need to be doing all their homework. You don't need to be doing, you want to build confidence in your children that they have the skills. They need to ask for help when they need it, but we don't need to make sure that they're straight A students. They need to. I mean, I think we support them with homework. Don't misunderstand me. What do you feel?
Absolutely. I think that they need to know there's high expectations. Like in our house, school is number one. Like that comes first. And so that is so important in our house, but they know that like we're there to support them. Like if they start to struggle or they need help, yes, we'll get you a tutor. And that's like a non-issue. Like school comes first. We will support you in anything you need.
Do you ever feel like school gives them too much homework?
No, absolutely not.
You don't?
I do not.
And I'm the opposite. I hate homework. I feel like you've got already 8 hours that day. Why couldn't you, why you have to bring it home in my family time? So what makes you like homework?
I like homework because I think it's repeated practice. Because
Okay.
some kids
Good argument.
so some kids can learn it one time, boom, they know it. Other kids know it 3 times, they're done. Other kids need 30, 40, 50, 60
But
repetitions.
do we all have to be punished?
No, we do not. And I think that that's where sometimes some families do need to go to the teacher in a polite and cordial manner,
Right.
not in an attacking manner, because it's all in how you say it. If you were to go to the teacher and say, listen, we've been at this homework for 2 hours now, and this has been, it's not just a one night thing. This has been ongoing for 3 weeks, and we are having tears, we're having hyperventilation, like I'm screaming, my husband's screaming, 3 kids are screaming, like it's just not working. Is there something we can do? And if I think parents go to a teacher in a positive manner like that and say, this is what's happening, teachers will work with you.
I agree.
Because teachers are humans.
I taught in the school system also.
Yeah. They're moms. A lot of them are moms. They're parents. They get it. Because it's not fun. Like,
No.
I get it. Like, 2 nights ago, my own son was crying over long division. I said, why are you crying? I just know it. I don't want to have to show my work. Because he can look at a math problem, a long division problem. He can just write it down. But I'm like, son, you have to show your work.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you had a teacher call about your child and they give you their version of the story and they're really upset with your kid, how do you handle that?
I really have to hear both sides of the story because there's 2 sides to every story.
But do you defend the teacher or do you and get onto your kid, or do you just hear it all out?
I really have to hear it all out because sometimes, like, we know, like, even as a teacher and a parent, sometimes kids are sneaky. Sometimes kids will do stuff the minute a teacher turns her back to pass out a paper. Little
Right.
Johnny Bob's over here being a fool. Like,
Right.
we see it all the time.
Right.
And so you really have to, teaching is hard. It's so hard. And I want
it's a thankless job. We all know that.
My gosh,
but I'll say this. I believe that teachers can also get little burrs up their fannies and sometimes not like a kid. Listen, I like some of my kids better than I love all my children, but I like some better on some days and like better the other day. That's just how it is. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. Sometimes you just like a kid more. But I would say that I'd have to, when I'm most successful, non-emotional, tell the teacher, thank you so much for sharing this. I know that my child's not perfect. Mm-hmm. However, I'm going to get their side of the story and we're going to come back and circle back and find out what the truth is. Because it's their version, your kid's version, and then there's the truth. But also, I also want to always show respect for the teacher because they're put in a very particular situation. And sometimes I think it's better to have respect than love. I think both is important, but love is really unconditional. Love is something like, no matter what, you're my kid, I love you. But respect is when if your kid is in the middle of the street and they're 2 years old, and you tell them to get out of the street and they want to know why, because you see a car coming around the bend and they don't see it, you don't want love right then. You want they do what you say because you said it. And that also is important.
Yes.
They need to respect and have a healthy fear, I think, of their parents so that they get out of the street or they obey instantly on certain, especially serious situations.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that's going to be popular with everybody because it's not very PC, but I believe that we're the adults in this situation. Mm-hmm. We're responsible for that child. It even happens when they're older. I consider the adult in the relationship always responsible for the relationship. So even as an adult children, the mom, if there's a rift, the mom is, I feel like I'm obligated to reach out more to make things right. Okay. I hope we haven't jumped around about too much, but how do you feel about chores?
I think kids need chores, and I think chores look different in every family. I honestly do. And chores are age dependent. I've seen some families use their kids like Cinderella. I'm like, why? Why is a 5-year-old lugging nasty trash to the road? No, the trash can's bigger than them. It's more unnecessary than them. And chores may look weird in my family.
What's chores for toddlers or elementary young age? What do you think?
I think keep your room clean. Maybe get your dirty clothes to the laundry room. Maybe help unload the dishwasher. That's suitable to me. Help unload the dishwasher. Help unload the groceries when they come home. Help fold laundry. Help put away laundry. Just things to keep the household running. Some families want people to dust. Other families have the luxury of a housekeeper. So like dusting is not such a thing that we used to do back in the day, but just things to help keep the house clean, keep the house tidy. If you
I
need
agree.
dog poop picked up, if you have a pet, feed the pet, keep the pet's cage clean. If
Teach
there's
them
a litter box,
responsibility.
yes.
I think all that's so important. But I will say, something my mother did is that we knew for the week what our jobs were going to be. So we knew what the expectations were. And then she had a list for every single room, what was expected to be done sometime that week. And she'd actually even have a little bucket and she'd laminate the little list in that room. And I really knew what to do. In fact, I know how to clean really because of my mother. I didn't like it all the time, and then she would have, if you do your regular chores, because that's just for living there, that's food and rent, people. But then she would have a list of chores that you could earn money. And so you couldn't do those until your regular chores were done. So it was first come, first serve. She'd put the money ones on like a piece of poster board and put the value next to it. And then we couldn't do it unless our chores were done for the day. And then you could pick and sign your name next to it and do it and get the money. And it wasn't big money either. This was back in the day when I was making 50 cents an hour for babysitting. So, it just depends on your family. Kids, I don't know what they get now for, teeth coming out or whatever, but of course they get a little more, but it doesn't have to be this big, humongous amount of money. I just think it's nice to have chores and responsibilities because that's important to teach them responsibility. And that's contributing to the family. We all need to work together.
Absolutely.
And also, there's a difference between a kid who has it all and a spoiled brat. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Because I used to always tell my kids when I was living in a double wide trailer, I said, you are the richest poor kids in America. Because they had everything they could ever want. But, we were not really well-to-do. I mean, I had to work like 3 or 4 jobs. So I just thought, but they still had their cars and they still had their allowances and they had chores. But they weren't spoiled brats. My kids were shared a lot of their life and a lot of their home with people that I was coaching and stuff. And that they never were spoiled brats. How do you feel about this?
I agree 100%. I think that if you work hard and you share what you have and you're not, because I think I know bratty kids. I see bratty kids, and that's not cute. A brat is not cute, but you can have money and still be kind and still be generous and share with others around you. And that is precious because everybody's in a different financial situation, especially right now, like with the way the world is and how many parents are really, really in that hustle phase. Like I feel like now more
when
than
you're raising
ever,
your kids, you're in the hustle phase.
You're in the hustle.
I'm telling you, I look back and I'm exhausted looking at it. I look at my daughters and my sons and everything. Like I'm watching them in awe because it is such a grind, but it's also the best and worst of times. It's like you didn't even know you could be that happy, but then you also didn't know you could be that exhausted. So it's a real conundrum. You know what I mean? It's like you love raising your kids, but once I was done raising my kids, I did not have an empty nest phase. I was good because I think I milked it. Yeah. And there was, you know what I mean? We went out with a bang. Like it was good. Okay, so chores are good responsibilities. Now, I don't know how long we've been going. I mean, I did 30 minutes on that first podcast. Don't know how that happened. But
you had a lot to say.
I don't know. It's embarrassing. But last thing I want to touch on is connection. Before our kids went to bed, the perfect scenario would be to read them a story, have our little family prayers. But I'm the worst person when it comes to these religious things. But we would do show-off time right before bed. We would spend about, I don't know, we sit in the living room, all of us, and they could show off something.
Oh, cute.
And do something. Isn't that cute?
I like that.
But they really liked it. And I even had my son Boyd practice being kidnapped because I was so paranoid about him being kidnapped. Gosh. I think we gave him PSTD, though, because I made him throw himself down the ground at 5 years old, dead weight, and scream, "You're not my mother." I mean, I traumatized this kid. He was scared to go to the mailbox. I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm just saying that we really had a good time laughing and joking and doing show-off time at night to create some kind of connection before going to bed with our kids. Because it's so hard these days to get everybody on the same page when they're all going at different schedules. So I think having these little connection times are good. I do want to give a little shout out to the single moms. God bless you.
Yes.
The single moms, I can tell a difference. And the ones I know, and the one I've seen, especially in Showtime, they're killing it. And I not only I stand in awe of you, and I'm just proud to know you. And I just want you to know that there's people who really feel for you, and just never be afraid to ask for help. Okay. All right. And I think that covers about everything. Listen, we have so much to cover with kids, and I hope you can get, something out of this. But I hope you remember that your kids are going to leave you one day. The best thing you can ever teach them is how to be a happy mom, because they don't want perfection. They don't want a perfect mom. They want a happy mom, because that gives them hope for themselves, I think.
I agree.
And I saw these little 2 affirmation things today. First of all, before we do that, Erica, is there anything that you want to say to sum up what we've talked about tonight?
No, I just think it hits it. And I just think that every mom looks different. Like today we were leaving school, what you said about a happy mom, John Benjamin, was so cute. He goes, Mom, are you happy enough for me to ask you a question? I was like, oh, buddy, yes. He just wanted me to pay for some little science club he's joining, but I think he was nervous because sometimes when you leave work, you're a little amped up.
That's
and
true.
I was like, I need to not be so amped up when I leave work. And I was just like, yes, I'll pay for it. Don't you worry. I just haven't been sent the link yet, and I'll get it. But I was like, I really need to pay a lot of attention on that drive home, because that's our little time.
And what's interesting is I like how she's doing that. She's taking, it doesn't have to be grand, effort of something. It can be just in when I pick up John Benjamin's name. Yeah. That's when we have our John Benjamin time. Yeah. Because they all need their little special time with their parents. Now, I will also say that kids, I want my kids to learn that some things are adult topics, and some things they should not always be interrupted in things. That's something my mother taught me that I don't want to forget. I sometimes feel like I gave my kids too much. I was too much thinking that they need to be the most important thing in my life. Kids are supposed to be very important, and we're responsible for them. All I'm saying is I should not have made them believe at certain times that they were more important than marriage, or more important with what I was doing, because it's a give and take. They need to know that there's a time to be number one, and there's also a time to wait your turn. And I don't think it serves them to think that it's about them all the time. I think it's going to hurt them. But anyways, I really appreciate Erica. Now, I found out today that Erica also watches The Housewives. So we're thinking about maybe doing a little podcast on some trash TV and just do that for fun. But and I wanted to end with this really quickly. 2 things. One is I don't try to get validation from my children. Now, I have lived through my kids. I'm not saying I did all these things right. Okay. I'm just saying when I've been successful or when things worked is when I didn't look for validation from my kids. When I didn't try to live through them, I let them have their lives, but guided them for things that they want to do. Be a cheerleader. Always want to be their cheerleader. But I don't want to get my validation from my kids, because it's kind of like when somebody will tell me if it's a good show or a bad show for Showtime. Are they really qualified to tell you anyways? Are my kids really qualified to tell me if I'm the best parent or not? I don't even think they are even now, because they have not had my life experiences, and I have to know myself. You have to talk to that man in the mirror, and I also like to talk to God about things like that. And I used to talk to my mom all the time, of course, before she passed away. But your parents are a good source. But don't be looking for them and being worried about validation from them. I don't think they're not qualified to tell you, anyways.
No.
You know what, you're going to know how you're a good parent is and how they turn out. And not just, I'm not talking about a perfect kid. I'm talking about a kid who stands on their own. That to me is a validation. What do you think?
I agree. And I think if they're kind and respectful people when they're away from you.
Yes.
Are they doing kind things? Are they mannerly? Are they not getting
manners would be a big one for me.
Yeah, manners is huge. And just
respect too.
Yeah, are they just a kind, decent human? Are they doing polite, kind things away from me? Then I know I've done the right thing, that I've raised them right, and I've sent them out to do nice things. And when somebody tells you, like, oh, let me just tell you something nice your kid did, there's no better feeling. Like, oh,
it is
good.
And I'm gonna tell you what, I experienced it a lot with Showtime. But when I was like 360 pounds, and I'd taken my girls out to Vegas for the pro action, dance conventions or pro dance, and I just had Gracie and Macy and a bunch of them with me. Well, I had just barely had a surgery, and I had walked slowly. Actually, no, this was not the surgery. Sorry, back up. This is just when I was 360 pounds. And we're walking up to the cliffs for them to jump off. I'm not going to jump off, but I'm going to walk my big fanny up. And Grace McCullough would not go ahead like everybody else. She stayed back and held my hand. She was in the, I think she was maybe ninth grade. I don't know. But she held my hand all the way up that cliff to make sure that I made it safely. And I'm just saying, that just said a lot about her upbringing. You know, that she cared enough about me to make sure I was safe, and she would step and then go, step right here, Miss Pam, because you didn't want to step. We were in St. George at the cliffs and jumping out. And so I wasn't jumping down. I was just watching and filming them. So I thought that was a real testament of her parents and how they raised her. And I don't think Gracie's perfect, and I don't think, she was a teenager too, but I'm just saying she definitely cared and was kind.
Right.
But anyways, okay. And then I saw these two things today, and I just thought I would like to end with this. I saw this on this little cards of affirmations. It says, making mistakes is better than faking perfections. Very true. And make sure you know that when we're talking about all these things, it's not that I think I did anything completely right. It's just I know what worked when it worked. And when I did things that worked, it worked really well. And when I didn't follow those programs, I had problems. But then also another thing I liked is I will not be an asshole to myself. And what I loved about this one is I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. I think mothers receive intuition for their children. I feel like we do the very best that we can. But I'm not going to beat myself up about it. And I used to. But I don't want to be beating myself up anymore. I'm not going to mistreat myself or be an asshole about it. I think we're all trying really hard.
Absolutely.
We can all try harder too. But anyways, thank you so much for coming. Erica, hope you come back for us to do some housewife talks and some more mommy topics.
Yes.
Because I think we need to do mommy topics like toddler age and when to start certain things when they're younger. Because I feel like that was so long ago for me. But anyways, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you all come back to another podcast and send me more topic ideas so we know what to do for next week. Have a good night. Thanks so much. Bye. I think I have my